Welcome back to another episode providing you insights to equip you for your healing and freedom journey. Mark DeJesus here. Welcome. If the resources and materials I provide are a blessing to your life, you can go to markdejesus.com and check out books and courses and materials. You can also support these broadcasts, all by going to markdejesus.com. Here today, I want to talk about the subject of your thoughts and the issue of control. And I want to entertain the question, can you control your thoughts? Interesting question, right? You get a variety of answers of what that looks like. Now, when our thoughts hit us, and those really disturbing thoughts, fearful thoughts, intrusive thoughts, unwanted thoughts, maybe thoughts that go, ooh, that thought kind of freaked me out, or thoughts that lead us on these tailspins, we can be very easily overwhelmed by the disturbance that these thoughts create. It can be a very common next step that we develop a sense of control to try to deal with these thoughts. And we start saying to ourselves, I gotta get control of this. My mind is a mess. I've got to control this thought pattern. And so we go, I got to get it together. I got to get a handle on this. Get a hold of yourself. Do you ever say that? Come on, get it together. What's wrong with me? Right? This intensity starts to come up. And what happens is control can start to come into play as we're trying to, quote, get a hold of ourselves, get it together. We're maybe frightened and disturbed by what's going on in our thinking. And so what control is often saying is, I got to get it together. Control is also saying, I got to get control of my emotions. My emotions are manifesting something, and I've got to rein that in. I don't like how I'm feeling. I don't like how these thoughts are making me feel. Control puts on heavy pressure, and it puts a force within you, this pressurized force. And it's understandable that when we're trying to work our thoughts, we give ourselves a militant, come on, DeJesus, get it together. You ever talk to yourself like that? Or maybe I'm just the only one. Maybe I'm just the only one that's like, all right, buddy, get these thoughts together. What's the matter with you? It's understandable. But what I've learned in my journey is that we develop these coping mechanisms, we develop these tactics, but we need Paul's exhortation in the book of 1 Corinthians when he says, he's teaching on a bunch of things, and he makes this statement. He says, I show you a more excellent way. And when he makes that statement, he leads us into the power of the love of God, which there's nothing greater than God's love. And so in our journey, we develop certain coping mechanisms and certain tactics that we try to do to deal with our thoughts. The greatest way to deal with our thought life, though, is to invite, receive, and learn to cultivate the power of God's compassionate love. Because it's in that context that we experience his goodness. Our thoughts begin to change and move towards the goodness of his love and who he is as a father. But control very easily comes in. I got to get a handle on this. I got to get control of my emotions. I get this pressure comes on you. And here's the thought. I need to prevent these thoughts from entering. Mark, how do I stop these thoughts from arriving? And it's an interesting question because it leads to the thought of, can I control what thoughts actually enter or present themselves or fly by? And control will say yes. Control will say, get a handle on this. It's unacceptable that these thoughts even arrive. It goes even deeper. Control rises up because it says these emotions, these negative emotions I'm feeling, or whatever emotional connections you have to the thoughts or your interpretation of the thoughts, control says these things are unacceptable. We need to make sure these things never happen. The problem is that control is rooted in fear, and fear creates avoidance. And so when we're afraid of a thought, control comes in and says, I'm going to do everything I can to create a controlled environment. The problem is that's very stressful, and it gets very tiring. And you'll get angry, and you'll spin out anger at yourself. You may snap at other people. You may feel constant stress. You may feel overwhelmed because control is a myth. Now, we buy into it because of our brokenness, right? We've been hit and wounded. We're empty, neglected, all this stuff. So we self-protect, and it's understandable. I understand. I get it. It takes a journey to unwind that and begin to allow ourselves to heal. But in self-protection, we try to get control. And when anyone taps into our control, we lose our peace, right? Because we're living under a myth of trying to create this highly constructed world of control. You can't control people. You can't control life. And I would even go deeper to say, you can't control what thoughts arrive in your thinking. You can't, and many people exhaust themselves trying to control what thoughts appear. Now, I'm going to delve deeper into it in just a second. But where are you controlling? Where do you have control issues? Where is control a survival mechanism to make things feel just right? It ties into that perfectionism. It ties into that self-survival. The problem is when you're living in control, you've got to maintain this intense pressurized world. There's no freedom in that. There's momentary survival to get through, but there's no long-term freedom. Control's rooted in fear. So if you show me your control issues, I'll show you your fear. And many people are afraid of their thoughts. They're afraid of their thought life. And fear gives all your thoughts power to be magnified. They get louder. When we learn to face them without feeding them, when we learn to drive the fear factor out with the love of God, we learn to let go of control. Control is always going to leave you in intensity and pressure. And let me make this statement. Your thoughts will not be healed under pressure. They're going to be healed under loving nurture and in loving empowerment. And love looks at your thoughts and says, it's okay you're having some thoughts. You're on a journey and you're learning what is good to think on, how to think on it, and how to practice it. Many of you treat yourself in very black and white thinking that you got to arrive, you got to get fixed by tomorrow, and control rises up, and I've got to make sure I never, ever hear that thought ever again. And under that intensity, you're setting yourself up to hear that thought again. As I've talked about in many other videos, we say, no, I don't want that thought. And all it does is increase that thought. The more that I grow, the more that I mature, the more I realize control is a myth. There's so much I'm not in control of. But we come under a myth of I'm in control of this. I've got things working my way. I've got that. And it's understandable, right? But there's also a deception to it. And it comes into our thoughts, and I've said it, I'll say it again here. You cannot control what thoughts are presented to you. And we often think, Mark, how do I get rid of these thoughts from ever appearing? I said, well, that's not, you're asking a question that's leading you into the wrong focus. What we really need to focus on is how to learn a different response to thoughts, because then over time, they don't have as much power, they don't have as much influence, and many times they can begin to disappear because they just don't have any hooks. And you become more secure in who you are. And you become more secure in what you start paying attention to and what you start thinking on. You see, there's a process we're on learning to let go of certain thought pathways and learning to redirect ourselves to new thought pathways. And I realized early on in the journey, my thinking patterns were very weak. I was just overwhelmed and bombarded with whatever came my way. And I would pray, God, take these thoughts away from me. Have you prayed that? Take these thoughts away from me. And I realized those prayers weren't fruitful. And instead, I had to learn a new response to my thoughts and then learn how to set my compass into a new direction and a new journey. You didn't get here overnight. Your thinking pattern didn't just show up, even though at times it feels like it. No, it's been a cultivation over the years of from birth till now, of cultivating what is your current state of the thoughts that get your attention. So if you'll give yourself permission in a journey, but part of that is going to be learning to let go of control. I have found that letting go of control has been one of the most freeing experiences of my life. But at first, it's frightening. You address control, you poke at your fears. You poke at Am I in the right direction? Am I heading the right place? And sometimes we let go of control, then we take it all back. We do that in our prayers, right? God, I give you this situation. I trust you're working in it. And then 5 minutes later, we take it back. And then we have to give it again. And then we take it back and give it again and take it back. Give it again and take it back. Give it again and take it back. God, I meant this. No, I didn't. God, take it. Whoa, I got to reel it in. And so there's great freedom, but you have to get used to what it's like to live in freedom. Because if you're very controlling in relationships, very controlling with your thoughts, very controlling in general, when you let go of control, you almost don't even know what to do with yourself. So we want freedom, right? Christians go, I just want freedom. Bless God. But when freedom arrives, it feels too good to be true. Because Jesus is saying, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. My yoke is easy. My yoke is light. Let go of trying to control everything. And instead, learn to have a more loving and gracious posture. Learn to have a more nurturing posture to the thoughts that arrive. And this has helped set me free in more ways than I could ever tell you. I'll spend a lifetime sharing the blessing of what it's meant to be able to let go of control. And I continue on that journey in my life. And so part of the freedom of letting go of control is I can't control what thoughts arrive. There's going to be goofy thoughts that arrive. What I can do is learn how to respond differently. I'm going to be, first of all, more compassionate. It's okay that I'm not okay. It's okay that a thought just passed through. I don't have to fear. I don't have to panic. I don't have to buy into the story that's connected to it. And many of you, you're not taken out by the thought. You're taken out by the story it carries, your interpretation of it, and the emotional feeling of it. Because really, it's just a thought. Let it pass on by. But it gets highlighted because of the meaning and the emotions. Learning to practice self-nurturing. I'm a big believer in the power of nurture. My wife and I talk about it often. We don't know how to nurture ourselves. So therefore, these thoughts fly by and we attach them, connect to them, and we put doom on them. We connect doom and gloom on them, and we magnify them. And maybe we have some other people we talk to and they go, yeah, and they're in that too, and they magnify them, and we lack nurture. What does the voice of nurture say? It's the voice of comfort that says it's okay. When I learn to change my response to thoughts, I learn a gentle redirect. It's a term I use often. It's not a harsh redirect. I'm not going to think that way. I'm going to think about this. I'm not going to think about that crazy thought. I'm going to think about God's love for me. You're still under pressure. Under pressure. What you need to do is you need to learn, be nurturing. What does nurture do? Crazy thought comes or thought that's bothering you, and you transition. It's all right. I'm going to redirect my thoughts. Because what you're doing is you're training your focus in a better direction on God's love for you. I'm unconditionally loved. I am okay. I'm safe in him, right? I'm learning how to train my focus. Focus is very important. But I'm fueling the focus by God's love for me. God's love produces long-term change. Sometimes we panic and I got to change. We get momentary blips of some change. Don't get me wrong. But long-term change is best fueled by the love that God has for us. I have to recognize where there's control, there's fear. And I'm changed when I experience love. So you start learning to be more compassionate to your thoughts. Because you can get so focused on thought go away, don't think that. How about just be more compassionate? And be aware, you're probably going through some stuff that you may need to be aware of your heart, brokenness, lack of love, lack of nurture. Those are the issues. Remember, the problem is not the problem. We're always spinning out on the subject the thought is bringing up. And I am constantly helping people. Let's get to the heart. And if you struggle with obsessive tendencies, compulsive tendencies, you struggle with panic and anxiety and intensity around this stuff, you probably have a conditioning where you're obsessing over that subject and you think that's the problem if I can just fix that. No, it's issues of your heart that need healing. Many times you go to quickly judging yourself. You have a thought, how dare I have this thought? I am so wicked. So evil. And other people around you go, yeah, me too. So wicked. Just terrible. Terrible. So what do? We all hide in our thoughts that make us feel crazy. And so in the hiding, we're like, oh, if people only knew, because they don't struggle. Yes, they do. Everybody's got stuff. If they say they don't, give me 5 minutes and I'll show you. We're judging ourselves. We're beating ourselves up. We get angry. Love welcomes the compassion of God. And so when you operate out of love, everything changes in how you see things. Right? So instead of I have these terrible thoughts, I'm a terrible person, when love comes into the picture, it's like, your heart's really needing a deeper sense of God's love for you. No, it's not. It's this thing there's that control. I gotta have God fix me. Hurry up. God, why aren't you answering my prayers? Why isn't God helping me? Control. Come on, God. I need you to. Maybe I should pray this prayer. This person said they prayed this prayer 3 times and they got free. I'm going to pray this prayer 3 times. Didn't work. Mark, I'm going to email you. Mark, it didn't work. Mark, this didn't work. Controls makes us so fixy. Love sets the table for relationship. And that frustrates our control issues. Come on, I've got problems and issues. Come sit at the table. Let's go for a walk. Let's go on a journey. Because your problem is not the subject at hand. You need a deeper revelation of what love means and what gracious, empowering relationship is. And your thoughts are going haywire, searching for safety through control. Finding safety in control is a lie. I'm going to learn to let go of control, but it's going to be very hard to learn to let go of control unless I learn what love means. Let me give you a Bible verse. Some people say, show me that in the Bible. Peter said it this way. He said, cast your cares on him because he cares for you. My ability to let go of control is tied into my ability to connect for how much he cares for me. Now, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do I first learn how much he cares for me, then learn to let go? It's both. As I practice letting go of control, it's a step of faith. Leaving some of your old controlling thought pathways can be very scary, but I learn to practice his care and his love for me. God, you got this. I don't have to have perfect thoughts for you to love me. You love me right now. And I'm going to practice leaving this world of insanity and anxiety. And so his love empowers my thinking to go, I got this. I don't have to think this way. But when it does arrive, it's not the end of the world because it doesn't disrupt safety. Because safety is tied into the love Father God has for me. So what can I control? Mark, you're telling me I'm in control of nothing. I was like, what am I, just going down with the ship? No. Here's what I've learned. I learned I'm not in control of much, but I can control one thing that I'll give some context to it. One thing I've learned I can control is my decision of where I'm going to point my compass. Compass meaning where I'm heading, because we're going on a journey. We're not going into a quick fix it. We're going on a journey. Are you ready to buckle up and go on a journey? Your thought battles reveal the journey that you're heading on. And that frustrates so many people. They want to turn off this video because they want a quick fix. And life is filled with all kinds of fake quick fixes that people present. What I can choose is where I'm pointing my compass. So what does that mean? I can choose where I'm headed. Now, I can't choose how well I'm doing in a given day because sometimes I take 2 steps forward, sometimes I take 3 steps back. But if I'm pointing my compass in that direction, it's still progress. Still progress. 3 steps forward and 4 steps backward would be -1 to achievers. But to me, it's progress because you're pointing your compass in a new direction and you took a step. That's success, folks. You took a step. But I went backwards. So what? It takes time to go around the mountain. It takes practice to learn. We carve out these grooves and we learn. If you're good at a sport, did you just all of a sudden jump on to the field or the court and you're amazing? It took practice. Why don't we apply that to emotional and spiritual and mental things? We got to practice. No, Mark, I'm faking it. No, you're not. You're practicing it. So I can choose where I'm headed, which then leads into I choose what I'm going to focus on, what I'm going to cultivate. I'll choose, and where I'm pointing my compass, I can choose how I'm going to start responding to my thoughts. And I'm going to choose a more loving response to my thought life so that I can learn to navigate and grow. I'm going to choose the journey rather than trying to live under pressure and fix myself all the time. I can choose to let myself work through my emotions rather than trying to get away. Because as I teach people, emotions are things that we have to go through, not just things that we just try to shoo away. In my choice of my compass, it's what I focus on. I'm building a reservoir. People say, I want to learn God's love, but I don't know how. Okay, well, it's time to build a reservoir. And they, 3 drips comes out of the faucet and they go, why isn't the reservoir filled? Takes time to build a reservoir. You turn on a faucet and you have a giant reservoir. Every time you look, you're going to go, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Why isn't anything happening? Right? Because it's hard for us to see growth. You can't even see. When you grew up physically, you didn't even know you were growing physically until your clothes stopped fitting or you saw a picture of yourself. Isn't that interesting? We have a hard time seeing the metrics of our growth. I'm not growing. It's not working. How do you know that? So we're building a reservoir, just day in, day out, gently refocusing back to the love that God has, gratitude for it. I don't feel it. So what? It takes time to learn what love looks like, what it feels like, to experience it. I can choose what I want to cultivate. I can choose to feed what is good of God's love for me, his grace, his kindness. And I can choose to starve all this. God is angry at me. God is sick of me. God is casting me away. God has nothing to do with me. All these things that put pressure back on you. That's what control does. It puts all the weight back on you. I noticed in my journey, 100% of the people that had religious OCD, scrupulosity, or something that had a spiritual God kind of subject to it, 100%. And I probably won't see anything other than this. The subject of where they go with it puts all the pressure back on them. That's what control does. It's all on you. So let me get this straight. Did Jesus die on the cross and break the power of what the law could never fulfill, resurrect, provide new covenant life so that you would have all the pressure and weight on you to do everything just right and fix it? But that's what OCD conditions us to do. Live under control. It's all on you. No room for mistakes. No room for learning. But see, I made a decision. I'm going to starve those compulsions. And I'm going to learn what love is, because I don't know what love means. I can choose what I act on and what I don't act on. I may feel the guilt and anxiety or feel the this, but I don't have to serve it. You may feel an emotion flooding through. You don't have to act on it. You can keep redirecting, but it's not working, Mark. Yes, it is. It's going to take time for all that stuff to catch up to your new compass direction. Pointing it, faith, hope, and love. Power, love, and sound mind. Grace, fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering. All these things that in Christianity, it's like we make Christianity about all these subjects. Paul says, you want to know the fruit of the Spirit? He lists them out. These are the things that actually combat the works of the enemy, the works of the devil, the works of sin, the works of what the Bible will term the works of the flesh. So I can choose. I may feel it, but that doesn't mean I have to act on it. I may feel anxiety, but I don't have to make decisions based on anxiety, because I'm learning to overcome. And I can starve my old pattern Maybe your pattern, you have a thought, you go research. You have a thought and you try to fix it. You have a thought, you do these things. When you let go of control, you let go of the compulsion to have to fix. But most of all, it takes practice. It takes practice, especially when it's not familiar. What it means to be filled with love and grace, to be kind to yourself, to walk in a posture that is lovingly empowering. What you need is love. So what would it look like for you to love yourself, to acknowledge God's love for you, to love yourself, and to be kind to yourself in your journey, especially when it comes to your thoughts? I'm going to redirect you back to an important subject that I wrote in a book called God Loves Me and I Love Myself. I encourage you to get a copy of it because love has a power to break the bonds of fear, which then leads into us learning to let go, to cast our cares on him because he cares for us, to let go of this control factor and instead learn a new response of love in our lives. I pray this has been a blessing to your life and journey. If it has, go to markdejesus.com. You can support with a one-time donation or become a regular subscriber. But I pray this adds to your healing and freedom journey. Much love to you. May grace be added to your life. Live healed, live free. And guess what? I'm out. See you next time, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Your brother from another mother. I'll see you later.